alarm went to the heart doctor today, almost passed out. Uncle Warren, Peggy,
No, there's not.
almost passed out the 31st. He's supposed to be getting watched now. Now, Boyd got him home, and he almost passed out again. He called Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel's now meeting Dana Keniston Hospital to admit him. They're going to do a valve replacement before they do the watchman. And he's 93. Not doing good. Exactly. Yes, sir. This is the place where he was going to put the Hampton Inn. It wasn't that turned out because he saw something.
No, I'll tell you what it's
Okay. I knew it was something. The gentleman in the black jacket with the gray goatee, he comes over and he said, "You look familiar." And I said, "So do you?" And he goes, "AT, he's my insurance man." I haven't seen him for 2 years. Yes, you
Oh, am I
know
in
why?
the right place?
Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that made you do it that way. Believe me, I was going to sit down there. Well, I went to sit there. You have it on property. Thanks.
Good evening. Welcome to the January work session, City of Hiram Council. Pastor McGrady, you want to start us off?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let us pray. Father, now in Jesus' name, we come to say thank you. We bless you. We give you all praise, glory, and honor. We thank you for keeping us through the night, keeping us into this day, to this very moment. Father, as always, I pray your wisdom and your knowledge lead these elected and appointed officials for the greater good of the citizens, for the greater good, God, of your people. We thank you now, Father, and we bless you. In Jesus' name I pray, with faith believing, amen. Amen. And right now we're going to have our students from Hiram Elementary School do the Pledge of Allegiance. All our honored students. Who's doing it? Who's getting the honor? He's going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. There's Mr. Black. There's Mr. Black. Good job. Now face the flag. Face the flag.
Thank you. Well, Principal Black, since you're up front and center.
Want to go down? You want to go get these guys?
And Principal Black recognize these students for their citizenship awards from Hiram Elementary School.
Thank you and Happy New Year. We're excited to be here tonight to recognize our student. And this is our first 5-day school week since before we got out in December. So we are making it through. Yes, weather and all. So we appreciate this being here tonight to honor our students. We're going to start with kindergarten. This kindergarten student is such a positive role model in our classroom. They exhibit kindness, fairness, and an eagerness to help everyone around them. This student has a sweet and calm nature that draws others to them. He is an extraordinary young man who will continue to do great things in his family, class, school, and community. We are so proud of Emilio Camargo representing kindergarten at Hiram Elementary. This first grade student demonstrates good citizenship by actively participating in their classroom community and showing kindness and respect to others. They help at school by being attentive and supportive to their classmates. This student always follows the rules and is proud of the work they do in class. Thank you, Connor Banjo, for being a leader in our classroom and school. This second grader is a spectacular student and fabulous friend. They are a happy hornet at the Hiram Hive. They are always willing to help others when needed, encourage others, and help keep our school sparkling clean. Thank you for showing sensational citizenship at Hiram Elementary. Miss Brooklyn Smith. This third grade student is always looking for ways to help others and include others. They are a very hard worker and always try their best. This student is a joy to have in class and is a great representation of what a hornet should be. Congratulations to Theodore Rivers.
Theodore's going to be a football player.
Our fourth grade representative is very caring and dedicated to what they set their mind to. Whether it be schoolwork or friendship, they are the first one to offer help to a classmate with work or to give them an encouraging word if they are feeling down. They are involved in school activities such as STEM gyms and Hiram Step Team. Miss Amia Gotten is a wonderful example of what it means to be a great citizen. And last but not least, This 5th grade student comes to school ready to learn every day and goes out of their way to help others. They are always willing to help the teacher in the classroom and participate in activities around the school, such as the media team. If a student is ever struggling or is in need, this student wants to help out. They can be trusted to make the right choices even when the teacher is not looking. Vincent Rivas simply makes a good role model and will make an ideal citizen because he makes good choices each and every day. Congratulations to our Hiram Hornets this month.
Hold on, parents, come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, unless you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're more than welcome for you and your children to leave now.
Hold on, before you leave, each child that was recognized tonight received 2 complimentary cheesesteaks from the infamous Philly cheesesteak spot here in the city of Hiram. Thank you to Dennis Laws and Kiera Laws. So enjoy.
Mom and Dad are gonna eat it.
Congratulations, young lady.
Well, very good.
Thank you
He's
for
gonna
being
be a
good
football
student.
player. 3rd grade football.
I like that.
That was he's gonna be a football player.
Item number 2, we have Mr. James Whitaker to present the City of Hiram's annual financial report. Mr. Whitaker?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to be with you today. I have completed the city's audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, and have issued the audit report, and would like to go over some highlights of the activity for the year, if that's okay with you. For the general fund, which is the most important fund of the city, if you'd like to follow with me on page 15 of your audit.
We don't have them.
Okay, well, I'll tell you about it then, okay? You ended the year with total assets of $5,023,000. Your liabilities amounted to $209,000, so that left you with a fund balance of $4,814,000, which is a reserve of 93.5%, which is still a good reserve for the city. Also for the year, the general fund brought in $4,681,000 in revenues. They expended $5,148,000, which resulted in an excess of expenditures over revenues of $467,000. You also transferred $788,000 to the sanitation fund to get that started up. So the net change in fund balance for the year was a negative $1,130,000 for the general fund. If you'd like to go over some of the other items, the city did buy a sanitation truck for $173,000 during the year. They also completed the final on the, I think it's, is it Allen Lane or Arnold Lane? Arnold Lane for $1,335,000. You bought $150,000 worth of property at 150 Oak Street, $290,000, I'm sorry. And you had also the purchase of about 8 vehicles during the year. At the end of the year, the city had several notes payable or leases payable, and their balance at the end of the year was $626,000. And you also had several subscription liabilities, which amounted to $410,000. In the business type activities, you had $111,000 left on the payment of the sanitation truck. And you also had some meter reading subscriptions there, which amounted to $127,000 as your liability at June 30, 24. If you have any questions regarding the audit, I'd be glad to try to answer them for you, either now or you could call me at any time.
And for the record, a copy of the audit is available in my office for 20. My apologies for not having it.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to be your auditor. Appreciate it.
At this time, the City of Hiram will hold a public hearing to receive public comment regarding application number 2024-36-Z, City of Hiram, made by AJITM Patel, requesting a change in zoning from B2 Highway Business to I1 Light Industrial for a proposed two-story, 49,910 square foot self-storage facility with outdoor RV and boats parking. Property is located at Land Lot 544, District 2, Section 3, at the northwest intersection of Pace Court and Pace Road in Hiram, Georgia. City of Hiram hereby opens a public hearing regarding application 2024-36-Z, City of Hiram. The full procedure for a public hearing have been made available to the public in the lobby of this building as well as the website. Anyone in attendance at the public hearing wishing to speak on behalf of or in opposition to zoning applications that are on the agenda must be recognized by raising their hand, and they will be asked to state their name and place of residence, and then to sign his or her name at the sign-in sheet, which is located by the front door, and that time has already passed for signing in. The person recognized to speak will be allowed to speak on any point relevant to the application being considered. Applicants and opponents shall be given a maximum of 15 minutes for each side to present its case. Any groups which are present are encouraged to choose a spokesperson to present their views. The mayor may request representatives of each side to speak for the entire group. If more than one speaker represents a group, the 15 minutes shall be divided among the various speakers. Speakers are encouraged to refrain from presenting information that has previously been stated by others. In no case, however, shall any group be allowed more than the allotted time, no matter how many speakers represent the group, unless extended by the city council. A designated staff member will be responsible for keeping time. Questions asked by the mayor and council, and the responses to such questions shall not be counted as part of the maximum 15-minute presentation time limit. No further public input will be allowed without consent of the city council. Each speaker shall speak only to the application before the city council and shall address remarks only to its members. Speakers shall refrain from personal attacks on any other speaker and shall refrain from the discussion of facts or opinions irrelevant to the application. The mayor may limit or refuse a speaker the right to continue if the speaker, after first being cautioned, continues to violate this subsection. Cliff, will you please present the staff recommendation?
As the mayor has read the proposal, the applicant is proposing to rezone 2.66 acres from B2, which is highway business, to I1, which is light industrial. The application was heard by the Paulding County Planning Commission on November 19th, 2024, and received a recommendation for denial. But if the city of Hiram chooses to approve the rezoning, Paulding County staff recommends the following stipulations. They recommended 3 stipulations, but after reviewing it, I added a 4th, if you decide to approve this. The first stipulation is the owner-developer agrees access to development shall be determined during the plan review process. Number 2, owner-developer agrees to provide a traffic memo for the development and coordinate with Paulding County DOT on methodology and parameters of the study. Stipulation 3, the owner-developer agrees to the development of the property is subject to the corridor overlay district. And the staff recommendation from the city, number 4, the owner-developer agrees to repair and maintain all roads, streets, and infrastructure used to enter and exit the property.
Will the applicant or agent for the applicant please present their request for granting the application?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thanks so much for taking the time to hear this case. My name is David White. I'm with Civil Logistics. We prepared the engineering site plan for Mr. Patel. He was not able to be here today, so I wanted to come present. The reason for the request is that self-storage is no longer allowed in the B2 zoning district. It used to be allowed in the B2 zoning district, and there are 3 other facilities in the city that are in B2. But a few years ago, it was switched, and I think this was a copy from Paulding County. I'm not sure of the exact origin, copying the allowed uses to where self-storage needed to be in industrial instead of B2. So that is the reason for the request. We believe that the storage facility is a good fit for the area. Self-storage, unlike many storage warehouses where gravel parking lot, lots of little buildings, those are a more industrial use, but the climate controlled facility is more of a retail use where people come in, there's no loading docks. It's a climate controlled facility. They enter the facility, they do what they need to do, and then they walk out of the same entrance doors, more like a retail store. So we do feel like it is a good fit for the area. We spoke to the neighbors, Mr. Estrada, who was in my office. He's no longer with us. But he spoke to all of the neighbors adjoining the property so that if they had concerns, we could address them, find out if they didn't want it or if they did want it. And all of the neighbors directly adjacent to the property were fine with it. They were kind of in favor. We did not talk to neighbors that weren't adjacent to it, so I'm not excluding anybody that was against it. We just talked to all of the adjacent neighbors, and they were good with the project. A few of the reasons that they thought it would be a good fit: if the property stayed B2, there's no buffer is needed for their properties, and the entire lot has been clear cut, so there's no trees, and so these neighbors can basically see right out through this property to all the other commercial properties, and they get a lot of noise from Highway 278. And so that is kind of a potential problem that they have with the property that it is now. And so they were excited to hear that it could be developed, especially with a big building that doesn't have very much traffic and that would block the noise from 278. As part of a rezoning to industrial, a 50-foot buffer would have to be created and planted. So that would be an additional benefit to the neighbors that right now they have no protection, no buffer, lots of noise, and they would get a 50-foot buffer planted adjacent to their neighborhood and then a building to block the noise. So they fully supported the rezoning and what the landowner was trying to do. This is not a merchant developer putting some land under contract and trying to get entitlements and going on about their way. This gentleman has owned the property for a number of years. Originally, he was going to do a hotel, and I think he had approvals for that, but then market conditions changed, and he's held on to the property, but now wanted to do storage. So he has been an owner and a taxpayer for a while. As far as infrastructure, during our meetings with Paulding County and the Planning Commission, they had questions about the infrastructure and requirements and how much it would tax the system. The self-storage facility is a very low traffic-driven use. We've performed a traffic trip generation study from the Institute of Traffic Engineers, and I believe the number was 36 cars a day was the estimated number based on the square footage, and yes, that's correct. Also, the sewage is a very low use for storage. Typically, there's one bathroom group in there, and there's one employee, so there's just very little sewage generated from this use as well. So not much additional use is put on the infrastructure for the city or the county. Going back to the recommendation from Paulding County, I'm going to have to take blame for that, I think, for a major part, and I don't want you to hold that against the landowner. We did go in for the recommendation about a year ago and met with them. We answered all of the questions, I thought, appropriately. Everybody seemed to be appeased, and I thought we were in good shape for a positive recommendation. One of the gentlemen just piped up and made a motion to recommend denial, and everybody looked around, and one guy raised his hand for a second, and then it was denied, but no reason was given why. So Mr. Patel waited a year, and we went back to come back through and do it again. And this is where it was my fault. I was driving in from Roswell, and I got into traffic, and I was there 4 minutes late. Well, in the 4 minutes that I missed, they called us up. We weren't present. They closed the case. End of story. I immediately went up there and asked, could I be heard, put on later in the agenda, and they said no. It's possible that someone could have come in to speak against it, and then when I didn't show up, they left, and so it was possible that someone could have been against it, and they wouldn't have representation at that point, so they would not let me speak, and so then we got put on the agenda for a subsequent meeting. And so then at the subsequent meeting, we presented the case again, and they did recommend denial, but the reason for the denial was that A, they denied it the previous year, and then B, we didn't show up for the previous meeting, and so that was the reason for the denial. So again, I don't think it was really based in the facts or a reason to provide a benefit to the community. It was, for those reasons. And again, I take full blame for that, and I don't want you to hold that against the property owner. So, that's a basic executive summary of why we're here and what the owner is looking to do. Again, this is a two-story facility. It's an over-under, so you access one side from the top, one side from the bottom. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the project or about what we've done to speak to neighbors so far.
How many units?
I am not privy to the market study for this project, but we have done a lot of storage. Let me pull up the site plan real quick. The total square footage is a little less than 50,000.
But you don't know how many units are going to be in that almost 50,000?
No, generally the average is 10 by 10. Some are usually a little bit smaller, some are a little bit larger, and then there's usually about 20% of the space is wasted for corridors and hallways and things like that. So if we do a quick calculation.
And the other question I have is these 10 parking spaces, is 10 for boats, 10 for campers, 10 for RVs, or a total of 10?
We have on here the parking in the back for the RVs is 5 in the lower rear area. And then on the upper area near the entrance was 5 for RVs. And then there's 8 parking spaces for customers, which is required by code. So
Okay,
10
but-
total for
10
rent.
total for all of it.
For rent. And then
Okay.
8 for customers.
Okay.
And so the quick calculation I got, it's going to be somewhere around 400 average 10 by 10 units in that facility.
Does the owner agree to the stipulations?
Yes, he doesn't have a problem with those. Those are very reasonable and prudent for this project.
Bob? The only question I got for the RV storage, is there gonna be a dump station on site?
No, there will not be.
Okay, so where are they gonna dump?
They would have to dump wherever they're
Miles away from
leaving
here.
and then come, this would be more like long-term storage.
Okay, so it's not short-term storage for the RVs and boats?
Well, I mean, people are normally going to park it here, they're going to go on a trip, and then they're going to come back and leave it here. So, you know, they're usually going to be renting for a long period of time. It's not going to be, someone usually wouldn't rent for 2 weeks and then never rent again. They would have a monthly contract and leave it there long-term with the exception of their trips.
Okay, and what size RVs can the parking spaces handle?
The parking spaces we have are, the 5 on the upper side are 30 feet long, and then the 5 spaces on the lower side are 40 feet. So that would be the maximum length that they could accommodate. And if that was an issue, we'd be happy to adjust that. We're happy to a stipulation of, you know, putting up no dumping signs and things like that, but, or not having dumping allowed on the premises, that's not an issue.
Those parking spots aren't covered.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I just have 2 questions. How
Sure.
long has he owned the land?
I was asking him that, he said it was from before COVID, so I think 5 or 6 years, and let me see if he was gonna look it up and text me back.
It's longer than that.
See if this was in there. He sent me an image of something. And I don't see the date on here, but he told me before, well, on the drive here, that it was before COVID that he had purchased it.
Okay, and I have one other question. I'm trying to get the numbers together.
Sure.
So if there's approximately 400 units, how much are the units going for? What is the rental fee?
Yeah.
I'm thinking numbers to see what benefit would be for us as a city.
Yeah.
And then with the 5 and 5 for the RVs, what are the rental fees for those as well?
I don't know what he would be choosing.
And I know this is not part
Yeah.
of the hearing, but I was just curious, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
my wife does have some self-storage, and so I would guess, you know, in like the $75 to $100 a month type range for 10 by 10s. But again, you know, it's all, you know, based on a market study, and being an engineer, I haven't been a part of any of that. And, you know, I think RV spots are usually in the $100 a month range, but
I'll do some
I just-
research.
I just, you know, don't know. It would have to be in the range of what everybody is charging, because you price it too much, then everybody's just gonna go to
Based
other
on the
places. But,
market.
he has said that there is a big need for this in the area, and they see a good opportunity to add to the supply.
Thank you.
Derek, you got anything? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Is
your
there
your
anyone
time.
wishing to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, if I could elaborate on a couple of the points regarding the rezoning request.
Go right ahead.
Being that I do attend the planning commission meetings, the reason for the denial that was given is that the proposed use, the rezoning from B2 to I1, would be non-compliant with the comp plan and the future land use map for the city of Hiram. The reason that this was changed as far as placing warehouse, mini storage, boat, trailer, and RV storage into an industrial type use zoning district was due to the proliferation we were seeing. Some of the council had some concerns about it, so it was determined to create that listing inside of I-1 or I-2 for the use of warehouse storage because it has an industrial look to it typically. And again, I'm not for or against whatever the council may decide on this, but those were the reasons that were given. And that was also the reason why the change was made back when we did make that change, where used to it could be in a B2 but had to have a special use permit. Now they just made it solidly needs to be I-1 because it has an industrial application and an industrial appearance typically. I would also state that the council can, if they do determine that they want to move forward with the rezoning to an I-1 for this use, you can stipulate it that that is the sole use allowed on that property from the industrial, light industrial zoning category. That is also an option. I'll send that out as an email or a text to y'all so that you'll have it to reference with the code section if you'd like.
I do have another question. So the properties, the businesses that are adjacent to this parcel of land, that would be the beauty supply, it's back, so there's no frontage, so it's not seen, it wouldn't be an eyesore for the public because it's in the back?
As it's been explained, it appears that it would be a solid building with some rear parking for storage for boats, RVs, and campers. The eyesore may be behind it, although he mentioned that there would be a planted buffer that would be required between residential and industrial property. That is true. There's also a buffer requirement between B2 and residential also. That's really a non-argument at that point. It's required for both those zoning categories. So it's up to you to determine whether or not you believe it would be an eyesore from the residents who come out from their house and are looking at it, if they can see it.
Okay. Thank you. I was trying to get a visual. I didn't get the chance to drive there. Okay.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Discuss Rosenwald request for Juneteenth at Gray's Mill. Tyrone? Saw you sneak in.
Good afternoon, City Council. I want to formally request, as we have for the last 3 years now, this will be the 4th year, to request to use Gray's Mill Park for our Juneteenth celebration on June 21st. The difference is this year we're going to do it from 5 to 9, just because the City Council has not seen fit to make the sun not shine on that day for us. And it's about 100 degrees out there. But other than that, that's the only change that we're looking for this year.
Questions? Thank you, Tyrone. Discuss using police salary saving through a budget amendment to fund the purchase and installation of 2 in-car mobile video systems for the Hiram Police Department. Chief?
Yes, sir. 2 years ago, we purchased a series of Ford Explorers for the police department. 2 of the Explorers were in non-traditional colors, and they were set aside for admin use at that point because we were flush with cars. We had cars for our fleet. As we've added personnel and as we've unfortunately lost cars, not to our own fault, but to accidents that have occurred to our cars, we were in a position where we needed to rotate those 2 cars into the fleet. Unfortunately, those 2 vehicles, after being marked and rotated into the fleet, do not have installed in them video cameras, which are essential for us to not only capture evidence, but be able to dispel some of the complaints that may happen against officers or prove if there is some kind of issue with the officer or the officer's behavior. So what we're looking at is we've had a couple of positions that have been open. I am proud to say they are no longer open. We are at full staff. But with the salary savings of those positions up to this point, there's enough to be able to afford the 2 cameras, which unfortunately now cost $11,500 a piece. So that salary savings would need to be used to purchase those vehicles, and then we would do a budget amendment either at the end of the year or before the audit is done to move that from salary to cover these costs.
Questions?
Sounds like this is something that's required to perform the duties and provide safety to our community, so no questions.
Chief, don't run off. Discuss adopting a resolution to add membership for the city of Hiram in the GMA Gurma Georgia First Responders PTSD Fund.
Yes, sir. Out of the legislative session last year, there was a bill that required that the cities must provide mandatory insurance and coverage for officers that are victims of post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a nominal amount. However, the city does have to enter into an agreement with the Georgia Municipal Association, who is the vendor that has been selected to provide the insurance under this bill for the cities. So you would have to execute I apologize.
Resolution.
Thank you. For a resolution to adopt this and be able to move it forward on the agenda for us to sign up and be in compliance with Georgia law.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Chief.
All right, sir.
The annual total for that cost of the insurance through GIRMA, which is the Georgia Interlocal Risk Management Agency through GMA, is $4,144 on an annual premium, just so you know.
Why is this?
Discuss the surplus of and disposal of 2 city vehicles. Michael?
Gotta read.
Hello. Parked at Public Works is, we have 2 vehicles, a dump truck and a Crown Vic. They're just there, they're unusable, and we would like to surplus and dispose of them. So that's kind of what our request is.
How are you gonna dispose of them?
Most likely Gov Deals, we'll try to sell them.
Questions?
You know, when I was reading, it was like a Crown Victoria. Okay,
It's
so
a-
can we part them out? Like, would it
It's a
make?
2010 Crown Vic, yep.
Now, do you just sell the parts? Would we make more of the parts or selling it as a whole?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, cheap.
That particular car was a
Crown
patrol
Victoria.
car for about 5 years. There aren't many usable parts left on it.
Gotcha.
Right now, it's a habitat for wildlife.
Yeah, that one's, yeah, that's a landscaping structure out there for sure right now. The dump truck, I think we bought it used in the past, if I'm not mistaken.
You are
but
correct.
it's requires a lot of work, I think, to get it running. But I think we could probably sell that one. Those are, if nothing else, somebody may buy it for parts, but we could try it and see.
Any other questions? Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Discuss renovations of the building located at 186 Oak Street under the water tower. Cliff?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we put out a request for quotes to renovate after the metal frame building was torn down underneath the water tower. Put out requests for quotes to renovate that cinder block building underneath the water tower to make it usable as a work location for our public works and to store all of our chemicals dealing with the water tower. We only got 2 returns for quotes. One was from Thomas Turnkey for $29,060 even. And the other one was for Contractors of West Georgia, $18,460.66. Again, this is something we need to do for our water department, for our public works, so to have some place to store all of that. And it would beautify that area as well, because when they tore the back building down, there's a little breezeway that's still there. So we're gonna make that building usable by this project. Not larger, no, sir. We're gonna, the electrical needs to be upgraded, the HVAC needs to be upgraded, and they're gonna put a pull-down door in the rear, on the rear door. Water leak was in the metal building. Yes, it's been fixed, the metal
Because
building.
it's no longer there.
Yeah, the water leak's been fixed. We tore down the metal building.
Yeah, they called the plumber out, but by the time the plumber got here, Chris had already had the leak capped.
Are you talking about the recent, this weekend?
It was recent, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I did, Chris was sharing that with me, yesterday, they did, Chris was able to get that fixed, without, well, the plumber was there, but Chris got it fixed on his own.
The water tower was installed like 1954, and there's a lot of infrastructure in the ground that has been covered since that time. So anytime you do a dig or you excavate anywhere around that area, you're liable to uncover something that was done the way it was done back then, certainly not the way it's done today. And what we had there was one of the pipes had, I think, been exposed briefly, but enough to where that, it was an old pipe
installing that and the pipe being there, Joe, is what you telling me?
I have a couple of questions. For one, it's a $15,000 price tag on that, and that's the lowest bid. Is this a priority at this time, or can we hold off and delay until we get the overall vision for Gray's Mill, since it's part of that parcel of land?
Well, this is for operations of the water department and for wellhead protection and security with chemicals and stuff, the chemicals that go with that. We just want to make sure we get the building secured, which this would do, and it would also make it a useful work location for public works, so it's not.
But don't we have a building for Public Works where we can continue to store whatever materials we need?
But this is for storage of the chemicals for treatment specifically at the tower.
Is that where it's being held down?
There may be some material that's in there, but it's not universally kept there. That's what the intent is to do
So
that.
right now, where are we storing the rest of the ones that are not there?
But this probably over at 183, or at 83 Duncan Circle.
At the Public Works?
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is, my concern is spending $15,000 now, which I feel is premature when we already have a place where we can store. It's not as convenient or practical because it's not right there on site. However, we re-engage our engineers to develop the park. And I think that should be included in the overall design. Plus, I think it would be cost effective to wait to include it then. I think I can't remember how many thousands of dollars we spent to demolish it, and I thought that was premature, and I just feel that we should wait. And then the other thing is another HVAC. Now, we talk about a 3-ton, is that included in this?
In this
quote?
price, yes.
That's included. Okay, so with these capital improvement projects, do we not have a replacement schedule to know? And not for this is a brand new one. We'll need a brand new one, I get that. However, we have HVACs that are going out in different buildings. Could we have an idea of what, these capital projects? We have cars that are gonna have to be released. We have utilities that are gonna have to be replaced and maintained. Do we have a schedule of replacement for capital projects?
Generally, we work
Improvement projects?
those issues with the performance maintenance contracts that we have with, like, the HVAC companies that we engage. We do shop that by best price that we can get, and then we will have a PMI agreement in place so that they come around and make sure that everything is working. They check it for leaks. And generally, what has happened in the past is we'll have that listed and on a 7-year program.
Okay.
Generally, it's 7 years, but I mean, if we can squeeze more out of it, we will. Sometimes they go bad faster. Sometimes you might get 10 years out of them. So no, as far as a formalized program, but we know when they were purchased.
Okay. Is this something that we can hold off on? Is it,
My preference is not in this case, because regardless of what may happen to Gray's Mill, this is about the water operations only. That is all that building will be used for, is for water operations, storing the chemicals, storing the tools, trying to make sure we have material on site that would be useful to the wellhead or also at other wells that we have. And that would be the central repository for it. We've done the compound fence once before. It probably could use an upgrade at some point, maybe during the time that we're doing the renovations to Gray's Mill, but currently it's functional. This is the only part of that building that's not, and there's not a whole lot more than you can do to the cinder block building. If you go and take a look at it, from the front, it looks solid, everything's there. It's when you go around to the back,
so would it be cost efficient for us to wait until we move forward with designing the park? And
I would
having that
agree with you
included
in most instances, as far as that goes with the remainder of the park. In this instance, I believe that wellhead security and storage of the chemicals at the site is more important than what that would address.
I see, okay.
But, I mean, we brought this to you. This is actually within my spending limit, with the exception of the second quote that we received, and then, of course, was no response beyond the second quote. But because this is a capital improvement, it was not necessarily a budgeted expense at the time. It was something I felt needed to come before the council for consideration. But I highly recommend, and I believe both Michael and Cliff would recommend, that we need to move forward with this one here, beyond whatever else we do with Gray's Mill.
Gotcha, thank you.
No vehicles will be parked there.
Excuse me?
Any vehicles?
City hiring vehicles? No, all vehicles will remain at 83 Duncan Circle.
Yes. Yeah, it's not going to be an office. It is simply going to be a location where we go and work on the wells.
I think Mike wants to say something.
Well, Michael's coming up, but
Oh.
since we're skipping around here, Cliff sent you there. Discussed a quote from Rent Engineering and Environmental for design, bid, and construction services for the Harris Drive Improvement Project.
That was part of the improvement we want to add to the memorial that we have on Harris Drive. The construction vehicles that went down there, as some of you could tell, has caused the top layer of the asphalt to come up. We're gonna need to do a mill pave on the street to get it consistent, remove the cracks, remove the pieces that are breaking away. And also, we want to have pedestrian traffic come to the memorial. So we're gonna add a 5-foot wide sidewalk from Main Street down to the memorial, on the side of the memorial, with cherry blossom trees down that whole side of the road. We're also gonna do when you're going down Harris Drive, the left side, a stormwater improvement process. We had a citizen who, I'm not sure how it got done, did some jerry rigging at the inlet directly across from the memorial, and it's failing, it's flooding every time. So we need to replace 2 storm pipes on the 2 driveways on the left and correct that inlet that was built or bermed incorrectly. So that's the whole process. It's an improvement process for Harris Drive down to have accessibility, foot traffic down to the memorial, and to improve the whole entrance to the memorial.
Okay, so this is gonna cost us an additional $80,000. Is that what I'm getting?
This $79,466 is for rent to do the plans and the contract. This is not the construction.
So there's an addition, see, that's what I want to know. The Veterans Memorial, my father's a veteran, I support veterans. I try to offset the costs by reaching out to Marjorie Taylor Greene, our Georgia Department of Veteran Affairs. However, we spent way over what what is the cap? Is there a cap?
This is not an addition to the memorial. This is something separate. This is for the street leading to the memorial.
Well, if we didn't purchase the land and have the Veterans Memorial, we wouldn't have this price tag.
Yes, we would.
$80,000?
We have, since I've been here, which has been a long time, we have virtually resurfaced and done roadway improvement projects on just about every road that we handle in Hiram. We have a few roads remaining, and one of them is Harris Drive. One of them is Center Street. There is another one that's going to be coming up that was done just prior to my arrival in 2005, which was Fitzgerald Street, which would basically start the cycle of roadways again. So Harris Drive is well, you know it, it's not a single lane road, but it is a narrow road. And it goes back to the area where the Veterans Memorial happens to be. But there is stormwater issues along the roadway that has been brought to our attention by residents along the roadway. And then, of course, trying to extend pedestrian options for people to get down Harris Drive to visit the park just naturally happens because that's where the Veterans Park is. But no, this would have been a consideration with or without the Veterans Park being there. We were eventually going to have to resurface Harris and hopefully do some widening on it to actually make it navigable more easily by 2 vehicles in opposition to one another.
And the construction, as I said earlier, the construction that was done at the memorial, the vehicles, it really tore up the street and it made it hard. And this project is similar to the mill pave that you've already approved for Duncan Circle. You're milling and paving and reestablishing the curb line on Duncan Circle, which you've already approved. This project is very similar to it. It just happens to be on Harris Drive, where we just happened to just completed a project.
Thank you, Cliff. Michael, since you're up, discuss the steeple removal and roofing project at 76 Seaboard Street, Camp Hornet Building.
Thank you. Can I add to the water renovation as well?
Go ahead.
Over here. So a lot of the equipment, the tools and everything that we use in the water department is currently housed at Public Works in one bay, and it's taking up the entire bay. So this would also help clear up some space there and make some usable space for Public Works and sanitation to do what they need to do. And then all the water will be housed in one location. So that's kind of our point of view from the operations side, I think.
I understand it sounds like more of a
Yeah.
convenience and something that is not a priority to invest that type of money. That's just me speaking, Michael.
Okay.
But thank you for
Okay, Michael,
explaining
go
that.
No problem. So we were looking at removing the steeple and re-roofing the 76 Seaboard. We got 3 quotes. They range from $25,000 to $37,076.12. $25,000 is kind of the limit before we need to go to bid, but we need to add some contingency to the cost. And with that, it would send it over that limit, and we would technically need to put it out to bid. But since we're right there at that limit, and the quote was 25, kind of want, I guess we're asking to move forward without the bid process. And also that would help make sure that we finish, refreshing the building before summer camp. We're working on landscaping, the roof, the steeple, sign removal, a bunch of other projects out there. And this would ensure that we get it done beforehand. So,
Questions? Moving along, Michael.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Is this a priority? Are there leaks in the roof where we would have to renovate at this
Yes, so-
time?
I'm gonna pull back here. The roof is well over 30 years old, and the plywood, the sheeting that holds the roofing is coupling, and I don't know if there's any leaks in the attic. I haven't been in there, but it is a very old roof, and it's past its life and time for replacement. But if we remove the steeple, we're going to need to do a lot of work to it anyway to cover that area.
And what is the purpose of removing the steeple? What impact does that have on our community? Like spending $30,000, additional $25,000, we haven't assessed if it's leaking at this time to see if it's a priority. If it's not a priority, I just don't think that's fiscally responsible of us to renovate. And again, this is in the same Gray's Mill where we are still trying to create a unified vision, get some planning involved for the overall design. And then I still believe when contracting that it would be cost effective to wait to have everything done. I think you get a better deal that way, like when you buy in bulk at Sam's. So to me, if it's not a priority, and maybe step one, let's assess and see if there are any leaks. I know it's old. I know we just spent a nice amount of money on the renovations for the interior for our campers. So they're safe in where they are.
In the basement.
But if there are no leaks, I think, why now?
So I do it in the packet with one of these quotes are several pictures of the condition
I
of
was gonna ask you what this was.
of the roofing. So I mean, that's,
What is
we
this?
had 3 inspections, those with pictures and 3 different prices to repair it.
Michael, can you tell me
That
what's
is
the matter
broken
with the
shingles.
hole?
Yes, that is ripped and broken shingles probably from wind, and there's definitely
This one.
a hole going into whatever surface that is. I'm not sure what part of the roof that is. So. But it's an appearance thing. It's just aging. That's why we're trying to reach out and get the project done.
And there are shingles missing, because I could see
There
some
are
of-
shingles missing, yes.
So replacement versus repair. First, we assess to see if there are leaks, and if there are leaks, then we can go ahead. Could we consider replacement of the shingles that are missing to be more cost effective?
Okay, so I
So we
can't, I
wait.
can tell you this, those shingles, 30-plus years old and the color, you're not gonna find anything that
see.
matches. And I can tell you from my own personal roofing at my house, people are not gonna repair. It's
Right.
gonna be a replacement or not
Has to be
replacement.
replacement.
The
That makes
difference between removing the steeple and replacing the roof is a matter of like $1,400 to $2,000. The cost is in the roof. The steeple, it's just gotta be removed, patch up the hole, and finish re-roofing. So it's gonna be a patchwork quilt look up there if we did repairs, if anybody is willing to even repair it.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
I got something.
Go ahead.
I just want to, this goes back to what we discussed earlier. We're at the end of a life expectancy of a roof. You can patch something so long, just like the pipe that busted. What'd you say it was made out of? Galvanized. How long has it been since we used galvanized in plumbing? years.
Right.
So we've reached the end of the life cycle. If we're gonna keep ownership of the building, we might as well go ahead and repair it to last another 30 years instead of patching it and coming back 2 years later and having to patch the damn thing again because another section failed.
I understand. It makes sense. And of course, because of the age, you can't do a replacement because the shingles and the different ones that are now. But we can still wait until the overall design and include that so it could be cost effective.
We're years away from even doing the design on Gray's Mill. We're not gonna be
But the-
sending out anything for Gray's Mill for probably 2 or 3 more years.
But if we think about it, we're piecemealing projects. You know, if we had a unified vision of our city, what we're doing next, and then strategically attack those phases. For one, we have Ben Strickland Park. If we're gonna spend $25,000 to $40,000, or one of these quotes, the lowest bid was 25, we can go ahead and actually start investing those monies. And I know it's different funding sources. However, but if we can shift things aside, I'm sure we can. I just don't see putting money into something that's not impacting our community in any way. It's a steeple, and it's a roof that has no leaks at this point because it hasn't yet been assessed. However, we have that park where many of our community members gather with their families, and there's so many things that we can do to that park. And I believe that these funds would be best spent on investing in what our citizens are actually interacting with, like that park. There's a lot to be done at that park.
Yeah, I agree, and there's,
And I'm so glad you got parks and backgrounds.
yes,
So,
that's, those wheels are spinning, I promise. But this is funded from the community services budget capital outlay, which is already there in the budget. So we have plenty of funds in that account to cover the roofing project. And
That
Ben
was
Hill
one of the-
has its own accounts as well.
And that was one of the considerations looking at this. One is the need based on the condition of the roof, and the other is the funding that was allotted by the council at the recommendation of staff. You approved the budget, that this was one of the capital outlay projects coming out of general fund, not out of a SPLOST fund. SPLOST is generally what we were looking to conserve and be able to apply toward Gray's Mill, Ben Strickland, Homer Leggett, and all of those things for capital outlay projects that are improvements, not repairs.
See, and I think that would help council as far as making decisions, if we had maybe quarterly updates of each funding source to say, hey, this may deplete that funding source for this particular project. However, here are 3 different projects that would be utilizing that particular fund. And if we have that, I probably wouldn't be asking so many questions. So I think just a breakdown, maybe
Sure.
every fund that we have and what they're used for. I never knew, and I spoke to someone here and said, I didn't even know we had a community source funding. And what is it for? What's the criteria? And what do we have in our city that meets that criteria that might be on top, like, that we could prioritize?
Well, and that is just a name of a fund too, that we assigned it to help track certain assets that the city has. So the community services budget, which is Department 52, is allotted to the events place and to 76 Seaboard Street. And that's it. It used to be the events place, and it used to be what this used to be, which is community center. And that's really where the name came from, was
Okay.
community services, community center. It's really not intended as a, well, it's just intended to help us group certain funding categories together. Department of Parks and Rec was Department 55. That's Fund 55 that we use to fund Ben Strickland, Gray's Mill, Homer Leggett, the Harris Park.
Okay, thank you, that helps.
Sure.
Okay, Michael, discuss repairs needed at well number 1 downtown.
Okay. All right, so well number 1 is currently turned off. We're utilizing county water for all the areas that well services. We had it looked at, very similar to what we've heard about leaks in roofing already. The piping is very, very old, and we have leaks that inside of it that's allowing very low pressure. So we were going to get that repaired, but looking at that, the entire pipe is kind of in that same condition. So this repair will lead to another repair and another repair that we just have to keep shutting the well down. So we had it looked at, and the price to replace the pipe with stainless steel pipe, new pumps and motors was a little over $23,000. What's that number? It's less than $2,000, $1,372 more than we actually have in the repair account right now to spend, which is why we're coming to you to see if it's okay to go ahead and make that full repair.
And that would be funded out of water fund.
Water fund.
And water cash reserve fund if we need it.
See, that makes sense to me, Jody, because there's a natural leak, and that we're reliant on the county for the water, and our citizens are
Correct.
impacted by that. So I get it. That's a no-brainer for me, spend that. But the other ones I was just a little concerned about.
Well, and the wells themselves, it's similar to HVAC units as well. You'll buy what is called a submersible foot pump, with the foot valve and pump that would actually be placed at the bottom of the well. Most of these wells have a bore depth greater than 300 feet. So you have a pump that's operating that distance with typically, that's the only place galvanized pipe is used, is in a well. And then you run a line with that from the pump, because the pump has to have electricity and it has to be well grounded all the way back at the surface level to the electric control box. We know that those pumps generally will last about 7 years on average. We have been fortunate that we've gotten generally anywhere between 7 and 10 years of use out. When they actually go out, it's anybody's guess, but you do try to maximize the use as much as possible, or we have consistently.
Thank you, Jody.
Discuss the retreat, Melissa?
Hello. So you all have the information that I emailed you before, regarding the retreat, and that would be a facilitator, Pete, Brzezinski from GMA, who also brings, Niles, and I believe his last name is Ford. Forgive me if I got that wrong. We had a conference call, going over. I appreciate that. Going over some of the thought process. He knows the discussions that I've had with you all and the information that's contained in the packet as well. Tomorrow's only a day away. And then also in there is information from Foxhall Resort regarding their meeting rooms, accommodations if anyone wants to stay the night. And from the emails back and forth, I believe the dates we chose were at the end of April. And I know that the facilitator's information says February, but he does know the end of April and he is available. So really just need, confirmation or any feedback, changes that you may have. And then, of course, working out details of, times and dinner, staying the night, what you all want.
Do we have any say as it relates to the agenda of things that we would work on?
Absolutely. So as part of Pete, once we engage him, he contacts everyone and gets feedback. So he doesn't build that agenda by himself, no.
Okay. One of the things we were talking about during our training, this retreat, I'd like for us to focus a little more on our comprehensive plan and using that to just draw in the next step so we can maybe possibly have one of GMA's consultants help us with our planning.
Well, I would like to mention that when I first proposed it, it was that mission, vision, and culture wheel. I think that's going to be quite expansive as far as, the discussions and the work going into that. Comp plan, and Jody can speak to it better than me, but we follow the county's, I don't know, schedule. Help me.
Generally, it's the state designates through DCA when our comp plans are due for update. Generally, there is a five-year short-term work program update that has to be done, and then there's the major update that occurs usually around 7 years to 10 years. We rely on the county to coordinate those actions between themselves and all of the cities of Paulding County. And it does include all of them, Dallas, Hiram, and Braswell. And then we work on their usually with their contractor, because they usually fund the consultant that is brought in to do it. But they do spend time speaking directly and individually with the city, both the elected officials and staff that attend the meetings.
And that's something I picked up from training. Some of the officials that I met in training, they have annual retreats and they bring their comp plan. And throughout the year, they have the short-term work goals. And department heads work together and then present to council so that we continue to do this on an annual basis, pulling us closer to a unified vision, a master plan, strategic planning. And I thought that's where we can kind of tap on into GMA's resources with the consultant. And I thought that would be an appropriate time to at least touch on that.
So my thought process would be, tell me if you think differently, is getting that mission, vision, culture wheel first, so that then your master planning is guided by your mission and your vision for the city. You're not master planning before you know where you want to go.
Correct.
Now, if both of those things can happen in that day and a half, hey, I mean, let's go. I don't want anybody to get disappointed, though, if the other part takes longer or, I'd love to see an annual retreat, so.
Can I just clarify, so the comp plan and the vision plan, there are two separate plans, correct?
Well, the comp plan is huge, it involves the whole county. And then there's no vision plan. Now, there's a short-term work program plan that is, 5 years, 10 years?
Part of the comp plan, but it's a 5-year update, just a minor update, I guess you'd call it.
So those are different. And then a strategic plan, to me, would probably be a lot tied to your mission, vision, values, where you want to go, what you want to see, what you want to do. That's my take.
And you should be guided by what is in the comp plan already, but it doesn't mean that at the next update, the comp plan can't have modifications. Because certainly you'll have updated it with things that you've been able to accomplish that you've already listed there, and future goals that you may have for the city that, and that also, that whole exercise heavily relies too on public participation, people to actually come in and take part in the discussion. Generally, it's lightly attended. We highly recommend it because that's where your tax dollars are gonna go, generally.
So are we working on a unified vision for the city? Is that part of the retreat?
That is part of my request or my suggestion, my hope.
Okay.
Yes.
Mine as well.
Huh.
Mine as well.
So are the dates solid for you all? The location, the facilitator? That way I can at least get that part, rolling and get him engaged so he can start making the phone calls.
What time would it start on Friday?
My thought was like 1, when Pete and I talked, it'd be like 1, kind of, and there's gonna be some ice breaking, there's gonna be things like that to where it's not gonna be all nose to the grindstone work, because the relationship building is gonna be a huge piece to get that mission, vision, values going.
I would prefer to do less building bonding. We built trees, we built towers with toothpicks last year. I want to get to the comp plan and have a vision and work towards a future for Hiram. I know we have a future, but what is the future for Hiram? So if we can kind of minimize on the bonding because we know each other.
We did one, though. How many did we do? One?
We had one retreat.
No, the building, the team building.
I can't remember, but
And it breaks up the monotony also.
we could do it, but I don't want to spend 3 hours on building things. and
Well, the
we know
idea
each
behind
other.
that is putting in that work. That's still work. That's just not nose to the grindstone work. So that when you get to the mission, hopefully there is some progress in the relationships and a softer conversation and cohesiveness.
That's something you can discuss with Pete when he
Right.
calls you.
Yes, because he's going to want input from everyone.
Okay, so on Friday, we'd have to be there by 1.
That's the thought.
Okay.
And
It's not
then
carved in stone yet.
No.
some stay the night if you want. That would be the further details we get down into. But it's close enough to be able to drive home too.
Right, and then,
Foxhall Resort in Douglasville.
and then Saturday morning, 8 a.m.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we want to get rolling.
and 5, 4, 3.
4, yeah, probably 3, 4. I think 5 y'all end up kicking all of us out. So,
So
all right.
on Friday, we would work till about 5
Yes, and then have dinner
and then dinner
together.
together.
See, that's great bonding there.
Well, that's part of it.
As long as there's food, she's fine.
We're good
That
with
is part of it, absolutely. It's not just for grins and giggles, it's part of it.
I'm ready to roll my sleeves up, and I don't want to build any more houses and things like that. No STEM
Well, if I do, I
projects.
don't want him as the partner.
No STEM projects, please.
I like the building.
I did too.
All right, discuss 2025 Paulding Chamber of
Oh,
Commerce Gallery.
and Mayor, I did mean to mention, public participation on agenda items was skipped over. I do apologize, Officer Gwynn. So once we get to that last item, be sure to go
I
through that
have it
before
right
that
here.
last item.
I have it here.
Understand.
Okay. Discuss the Chamber Gallery. Melissa?
So it came up, I was on the Chamber's website, the annual gala is approaching, March. We have supported the gala for over decades and wanted to know where we stand this year. I know last year it was a hit or miss, we didn't know which way to approach it because whatever was going on. Chamber of Commerce, as we know, drives economic development for our city, for our county, and I feel as council, as a municipality, that we should continue to support, and I just wanted to know which way everybody feels comfortable. So, the options are individual seats and the table. And we get marketing with the table for several weeks. So we get marketing with the table.
What do the
marketing with that.
tickets cost?
Ooh, I thought that was shared, I'm sorry. I can provide that to you right now, I'm sorry. Pretty much what was it last year? It was about $1,500 for the table, $1,500, right?
I
For the
don't
table,
remember.
and then each individual seat, when you purchase 8 of them, it exceeds the cost of getting the table without the marketing. So 1,500 is what I remember, but I can make sure I confirm that number.
I can confirm with you that that was what was budgeted. That, I did look that up before, that the budget was approved with that note in there at 1,500 for chamber event, which must be the gala.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure if that was because we did the individual seats last year as opposed to getting the table and lost out on its marketing. So I'm not sure if that's the number for the table itself, but I can get that information. I know Melissa's trying to find that now.
Annual awards, individual tickets, $125. Premier sponsor reserves 8, and that is $1,750. Prime sponsor reserves 8, and that's $1,500. I don't know the difference between those two. And then a reserved just table of 8 is $1,250.
Okay, so it's a matter of a couple of $100s to market and to support the Chamber of Commerce, which drives economic development, supports small businesses, big businesses, nonprofits, and for-profits. Okay, got that. So, do you guys want to discuss options or no? No? Okay, it's a discussion night, just a reminder. Okay. We'll skate by.
Discuss the potential of a city K-9 unit, Councilmember Carroll.
Carol, I requested.
I do want to pause because the procedures for meetings allow for the public participation before the agenda.
Okay.
So that-
We have one person that signed up. It's Officer Gwen.
I'm just here to offer you guys an opportunity, offer the police department an opportunity to have a K-9 that would benefit us both in the community, in the department. I believe it would make us a stronger agency, and I believe that it would provide a level of help in the community as well as in community engagement. So I'm basically here to answer any questions that you guys may have about what it is that I'm offering to the city.
first of all, it's very nice for you to offer, we appreciate that. But the determination for a K-9 unit comes from our chief of police. We hired him to run the police department. If he has a need for a K-9 unit, he will come to the city manager and discuss that, and then he will bring it to the council for consideration.
I did not know that. I thought the governing body sees if there is a need for our city. We do have a chain of command. We appoint 2 of our employees, and Jody appoints a chief of police and a clerk. They govern their departments. What I heard being offered to our city was something that I thought would bring value, not only to the citizens, but also to our police officers, providing them an additional tool for safety. We know that we have, I think it's up now, Bob, what is it, 1.5 million cars going over past this corridor?
2 million.
2 million?
2
2 million. With the possibility of drugs being brought in and just trafficking through. We know that because we know that there is a heavy problem with drugs in our county. And I thought, when I learned of this opportunity, that would save us up front the bundle cost of a dog, which is $10,000, and being able to lease it per year for $1. Now, I've always supported my police department and the leadership of my chief here. I would not go against him. So this is not a elected official trying to take control or micromanage any department. I'm here to serve our constituents, our police department, our employees, and to advocate what I feel brings value. So when I met Officer Gwen in the parking lot, I overheard a conversation, and I was intrigued. I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And when she shared the idea or the plan or tentative plan, I thought that was great because this police, for one, the cost. So you guys hear me asking questions about cost, so I'm very concerned about how we spend money. And the fact that we are eventually going to move towards the K-9 department, however, it will cost us later more than it would now. So if we seize the opportunity now, we would save at least $30,000 from what I understand. And that's why Bob invited Matt Rook, who runs the K-9 department, not a K-9 department. You're the chief of police. You were the chief of police.
That was my prior job. We run a K-9 training facility.
I'm sorry, the K-9 Hurricane Creek. So we met just because I just needed more information. Like I said, I was going to drive by Patel's hotel just to make sure what is being impacted. So for any questions that I could not answer, I followed up. And I followed up with chief, and I followed up with council, and all council members were on board at the time when I lobbied because of the value. There are certain concerns that I understand that chief has about liabilities, which I was not aware of. So not that I overstepped, but I thought I was doing the additional work on behalf of our police department because I support them, and behalf of the people that voted me into position, and those that didn't because they still need safety. So not only do we have an opportunity to seize where it's going to not cost us $10,000 for the initial, I hate to call it a bundle startup fee, but you have a dog for $10,000 that we're not paying, the training that will not be paid, and certain, and then the willingness of Officer Gwen, who can mitigate some of those costs. So it would cost us a minimal, and I forgot, Jody, to follow up on you about the insurance when we did have K-9 units, how much that would cost. I understand there's liability with a K-9 unit, but we have liability with our police officers who walk around with guns. Not to say it's a bad thing, you guys are protecting and serving, but that is a liability when you think about it. If we're going to move forward 10 years from now, it's going to cost us more. We have someone who is passionate, someone who is willing to forfeit the monetary compensation, willing to create a a K-9 foundation funds so we can eventually grow it out. This dog, Achilles, I met Achilles, not that I'm an expert on assessing dogs, that's our chief that does that. But Matt Rook is here on behalf of the Hurricane 9, and he was able to answer questions. And There were some concerns that I cannot articulate as well as you did, and that is why Bob invited you to present. And I thought that was a great idea. So that way, if there are any questions, we're here in the same forum and same setting, so the questions can come and we get it together. I know, Chief, there are some concerns about liability, but as far, I just wanted to make sure that financially speaking, we're going to save thousands, over $30,000. I believe the veterinarian costs you said you would absorb. I don't know if that's legal. We have an attorney here. These are questions that we can just bring to the forefront to see if we could push this forward. I spoke with a councilman from Elton Alexander from the city of Stockbridge, and he says this is a great opportunity. Councilman of Lawrenceville, Bruce Johnson, they have a K-9 unit. It's a great opportunity. Carrie Armistead, Councilwoman from Dorville, great opportunity. Jasmine, Mayor of Stonecrest, great opportunity. There's another gentleman from, the mayor from Rincon, who has 17,000 population, no property tax. They have a K-9 unit. So I'm like, okay, if it's cost, Chief, I got you. We can cut the cost, we can mitigate the cost. We're bringing an additional tool for our police officers to keep them safe, an additional tool for our citizens to keep them safe, drugs off the street, and whatever, from what I understand, and still learning, because this is not my lane, but my lane is to advocate for what brings value. So, I believe if we seize drugs, if any drugs are seized during a traffic stop, that would be something that we would put into our account. And it decreases the amount of drugs on our roads, in our communities. In addition to that, the dog can be used for community engagements. We have Hiram Elementary. I know that Matt said this dog's assessment, you assess its temperament, and that you went to Home Depot, he's friendly. So we can also utilize him, not just for narcotics, but also for community engagement, and not only for that, for missing people. We had 3 within a 2-week span, or maybe 1. My son was one of them. Unfortunately, I don't know if a K-9 would have made a difference at that time, but this is not a personal thing, because there were 2 other missing people, and a K-9 was borrowed. We do have an intergovernmental agreement with our county. However, if we have our own, that will help us with retention efforts, recruitment efforts. We grow our department, and I just think I don't see the logistics and everything as far as liability. So that is why I felt, Mr. Rook, please come and help me understand and help my council understand. And the concerns that my chief have, which are really important because he's experienced, I'm one of his biggest fans. And so that is why I thought, bring it all to the table. It's a discussion night. Let's see what we can do, if it's a possibility for our city.
Officer Glenn, have you ever been a K-9 officer before?
In law enforcement, no, sir. Private side, yes.
Okay. There are several things that go along with this. We also have an MOU with Paulding County Sheriff's Department, who has a full-fledged K-9 unit. In talking with their commander over there, they still do not have enough dogs to cover the time span that it takes to operate a full-service police department. So by us getting 1 dog, if it's trained in narcotics, that's one thing. In order for it to be trained as a search and rescue dog, that's an additional training. A startup cost for a K-9 program is estimated at $124,766, with annual operating expenses exceeding $41,826. Which includes approximately $14,000 for the K-9 handler and overtime expenses required by the program. We don't have that kind of money in our budget right now. The Georgia Municipal Association has stated that our insurance would increase approximately $15,000 a year for coverage of a K-9, with additional cost of liability coverage that it cannot be estimated until the program begins. This increase would negate the cost savings provided by the police department's state certification program. By us being a state certified police department, we get a discount on our insurance through GMA. That's all wiped out if we have to do an additional $15,000 a year for the Kmart, for the K-9. We have other officers that have been here for some time that have expressed a desire to become a K-9 officer, should we ever decide to go in that direction. And those officers would have seniority over yourself, being that you're a new employee. And there's other things down here, the training, the liabilities, you talking about bringing the dog over to the elementary school. Chief, why don't you give us a dissertation on that, please?
Mayor and council, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll excuse me for a moment, I apologize, I'm not bragging, but I need to give you my background so you understand my stance on this issue. For 16 years, I was the State Department's trainer for canines in Georgia, Armenia, Moldova, for all of Europe. I wrote the State Department's blanket purchase authorization documents and acquisition documents for canines for programs around the world. I was also the lead person in charge of development of many different police departments overseas, including the police departments in Kosovo, Iraq, Sudan, Georgia, and the Philippines. My life for the last 16 years has been devoted to police development, and I have been a canine handler, trainer, and I also train people who run canine programs and supervise them. So I don't make these commentaries as just someone who does not agree. My last dog was Charlie. Charlie was my dog, even though I had trained him for the Georgians. Charlie had an unusual habit that the Georgians did not like, and therefore I worked him at the border and at the airport. And when the Georgians no longer wanted him and my assignment was coming to an end, I arranged for him to be donated to the Social Circle Police Department, who had a canine program and process. So this is not someone who does not like dogs and does not want to have dogs. However, at this moment, the Hiram Police Department's priority, and I'm going to borrow one of your words, Ms. Bayadell, priority is not canine. We have more important issues that need to be addressed. I need an additional detective because my detectives right now are handling 60 cases per person per month. There is no possible way that they can spend as much time as is necessary to investigate those cases thoroughly, and it is not a criticism of them, but it is a fact of the way that we are growing. Secondly, I need to add to the traffic unit, not for a canine, but to reduce the 932 accidents we have every year, the injuries and the deaths that are occurring here within the community caused by 2.1 million cars a month transiting this city. A canine is a long-range goal, but it is not something that we need to do today. When we talk about this canine and its use, it's going to be limited. It is a single-purpose dog, and this is not, and please, Jeff, this is not any degradation of the training that you've done for the dog, but it is a single-purpose dog, meaning that it is trained for one thing, and that's narcotics. It cannot be used for searching for people. That's an additional 3 months of training, usually basically 3 months of training, at least in my world, coming from how we trained our dogs. 3 to 6 more months to search for people. But secondly, I can't take it into the schools. First is a legal reason. The schools have to give me permission to take the dog into the school. The second is, if that dog becomes aggressive or bites a child, we, the city, are responsible. I'm personally responsible, and so is the handler. We very rarely will take large dogs like Shepherds or Malinois, particularly some of the ones that I've trained. I had a Malinois who was 90 pounds, a female, named Attila, and she came across that name by her own choosing. I still have teeth marks from Attila. She was one of my best dogs. But if you took her toy away or you had in your possession anything that looked like her toy, you got bit because you did not give her her toy. And imagine a dog that we have not assessed going into that school with a child that has bouncing a ball that looks similar to the reward that the dog would get. And they go after that ball, and a child is injured in the process. We are responsible. So there are many questions, but let's go back to a more rudimentary and fundamental fairness that you have pointed out, Mayor. We have tried desperately in the police department over the last 4 years to make sure that any promotion or any special assignment is done based upon a person's merits, that they have earned their right. Because we have to protect every employee's rights. Every employee of that police department has a right to be a canine officer if they meet the minimum criteria. Every member of that police department who meets those minimum criteria should be assessed and have a potential to be interviewed by a panel that would make the recommendation, and then we would finally decide. If we violate those basic practices, we have gone back to establishing a good old boy system, regardless of the circumstance, that then leads us into a situation where we are now liable because we are giving preferential treatment for whatever reason and discriminating against other people who may also be competent and capable. If we're going to do a canine program, even though it is going to cost us money at the beginning, let us do it correctly. And yes, it's going to be expensive, but let's do it the right way so that we protect the rights of our officers. We get the right dog that has the right training. We can resolve the problems we have with missing persons today. We have technology, and that would be using night vision devices that are equipped with thermal and a drone equipped with thermal that could do the same thing the dog can do in our limited geographic area. But if I need a dog, I can call the sheriff's office because we're under an MOU to borrow their dogs. In the last year, we have called a dog out one time on a missing persons, and the dog was not used for a specific reason. The handlers and us agreed that the footprints, the area that the person had gone through, the scent trail, had been contaminated by officers and other people looking for the person before the dog arrived. And therefore, the dog would have been of limited or no use. But that dog was trained to do search. This dog that we're talking about here is not. And then the final issue is, regardless of being donated or saying I'm not going to get paid for this, that is not going to happen. Fair labor standards is very, very clear. For every hour a person works, they must be paid. Failure to pay that person for those hours, which for a handler includes training every 2 weeks and an hour each day, 365 days a year to take care of the dog beyond their normal duty hour, we would have to pay, which in this case would total about $14,000. Failing to pay that money, the employee could, within a 3-year period, file with Fair Labor Standards, and we would be required not only to repay all of that money, but 3 times the amount of that money in a penalty, plus there would be personal penalties against those of us who were supervisors and signed those timesheets and authorized that that person not be paid. We are opening the city to liability by trying to rush forward on this. And I agree, some of your council members and some of your people say, yes, a dog is a great thing. But to put the dog program in, we need to make sure we follow all of the protocols and all of the rules, because if not, we open ourselves up to a massive amount of liability that the city cannot handle. The average liability case on dogs is somewhere between 1.2 to $2 million. We don't have that kind of money to throw away where we make a mistake in how we set up a program. So what I'd ask is, please, we look at other options right now. Let us finish the development that you have been so proud of and that you have been so steadfast in helping support us to do. Because again, as I mentioned before, we're the only agency in our area that is at full staff. Our people are handling 17,500 calls a year. And they're doing it well, with less than 6 citizens' complaints last year and about 6 use of force issues, which did not include a firearm being used against an individual in this community. So I think you should be proud of where they are, and the development needs to continue. This will stop us from doing things that are extremely important right now for this, not only for the police department, but for the citizens that are looking at the police department to render the assistance that they need.
Chief.
Right quick. So, I guess we all can agree eventually.
Yes, sir.
So, is there anything stopping us from just kind of looking at putting things in process, step by step, and head in that direction?
I already have talked with Van Lick Kennels, which is the kennels that I used to use for the State Department. If we do it, and I'll give you an idea of how this works. For 1 week, myself, another senior trainer, and my handlers would fly from Tbilisi, Georgia, to the beautiful downtown Moscow, Idaho, or Indiana. If you've not been to Moscow, Indiana, it's okay. Nobody else lives there either. Okay, leave Des Moines, go 322 cornfields past, and it's there, all right? We spent a week, we went through 35 dogs to pick 5. We tested 35 dogs to pick 5. Because not only do I have to pick the dog for its temperament, I have to look at my handler and make sure that my handler and the dog that they're working have the same personality and can work together. And even after doing that and then returning to DC to begin the training, 3 weeks in, one of our dogs had a bad morning, bad day, bad food, we don't know, bit the assistant trainer through the hand, causing them to have surgery on their hands. Second dog decided, I just don't want to work, about 3 weeks later. And even though we went through the entire process, we had to replace those dogs in the middle of a 16-week training program before they even went on to the airport grounds or onto the port of entry. Now, and I know that's excessive, but again, you have to realize we were training dogs that were working at airports, auto interdiction, tractor trailer, and at port authorities and at crossings for borders. So understand it's a protracted period. We're looking right now, if I'm reading the tea leaves, probably at least 1.5 to 2 years down the road before we can even think about starting the K-9 program.
But you got everything lined up.
Everything is lined up. All I need is to have the right confluence of circumstance and, more importantly, to have the need for it, which I don't. I have more pressing issues that need to be addressed today.
Then my question is really, if by some chance this happened, you said here that you have to get a DEA license to possess the narcotics that you have for training.
Yes, ma'am. We would have to go to the DEA. The department would have to be issued a license, and we would have to draw from a source, usually the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, samples of those drugs that we would train the K-9s on. Now, there is, in our business, there is an undercurrent of people that use synthetics. I am not a big fan of synthetics because I don't think that they truly give off the odor that real drugs do. But more importantly, for example, in Georgia, we trained the dogs on every major narcotic, including black tar heroin, which you do not see in this part of the world. But then as we got back to Georgia, we had a new drug that surfaced called Subutex, which is a synthetic morphine. Being able to get my hands on it, we were then able to train the dogs within a couple of weeks to then be able to identify Subutex. So each time there's a new drug, we have to go back to the DEA, get permission, get the drug, train the dogs, certify them on that, and move forward.
So there's a license for each drug?
There's a license for the cumulative amount, and it has to be weighed every month, and it has to be weighed before and after every training session.
And do we have a storage area for
It would
some?
have to go in our evidence locker, and I'll let you deal with our evidence tech for
Okay.
getting it in and out.
Are those licenses expensive?
No, ma'am, they don't cost us anything
Okay.
except for the paperwork, and unfortunately, if any, for any reason, for example, we had one case, not us, we had one case where an agency, the car, basically when they put the drugs back in the car, they spilled. And then their measurements don't meet, and then we have a serious problem with DEA trying to explain why there's a difference between the measurements of the drugs.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Just thank you, Chief. And I didn't see the liabilities as you see it when I met with Matt Rook. These are some of the questions that I asked, so I'm a little confused now. But I didn't want, I did ask, well, Bob, you invited Matt Rook, and I would at least think it would be cordial of us to allow you to present what you were going to present, if that's okay with council.
5 minutes.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. I'm Sam, Matt's partner in the business.
We can hear you.
Yeah, come up to them.
Okay.
Is the time constraint for those who have asked, is there a time constraint for visitors that we've asked to come? Or is that just for visitor business?
This is a little different. It's not really citizens of the public coming to speak on the topic. It's supposed to be people being invited from the city council itself. So, but if the council and the mayor's saying it's a 5-minute term, then I think it's, it's basically just speaking at discretion of the council at this point.
So we can provide them additional time if council, if they need more time, can council provide them additional time? I know Mayor, the mayor that designed this, what's the mayor's name that designed this? Carmen, she was here exceeded her 5 minutes. Not sure can we provide them more time?
If the council voted by majority to do so.
Oh, it wasn't voted
All right,
last
let's
time,
let 'em
okay.
be
I don't think we'll need it. And we didn't want to come here to formally present one side or another. We actually don't have a proverbial dog in this fight, excuse the pun. Because we've already been paid for the services by Officer Gwynn that we've done with the dog. So all of that training has been covered. We are not expecting any funds from the city whatsoever. So we are just here to kind of, it's really going to be answer some of the chief's concerns or address some of his concerns as far as what he just spoke about. And so to start off, and Chief, this is great because you are a former canine handler, so I feel like we'll be able to speak the same language a little bit. And just to correct one thing for the training of this dog in particular, we've had the dog for going on 3.5 months, almost 4 months at this point. So we did start it on narcotics and tracking. So it is able to do just the typical police tracking, not search and rescue whatsoever. So as far as your missing son, that probably would have been a scenario where a search and rescue unit was needed for something like that. But this dog in particular has been trained. We say single purpose. Everybody uses different terminology. Usually dual purpose or full patrol is that bite dog part. But the dog is trained on narcotics and tracking. We also contract with several federal agencies. We contract with the USDA, Customs and Border Patrol in both Front Royal and in El Paso. And so all of our dogs are chosen to that standard. So typically when we do our eval, we are doing an eval to that federal dog standard. And it just so happens that Beth's dog passed our eval. The dog is from a working line breeder with those traits going back generations already. And so we also denied the sibling. So we tested both of her dogs, and the sibling was denied. And Achilles did end up passing the evaluation. And as I said, all of that is to that federal standard because those are the types of dogs that we want to put out typically. And so we do multiple environmental testing, temperament testing, drive testing, all of that. And the reason I guess that it was brought up to bring to the schools, which valid point, so we don't usually bring the pointies into schools. But when we're temperament testing, especially if it's not a bite dog, we tend to tell departments, listen, we think that your dog wouldn't be so much of an issue to have as a PR dog. Could go to different parades and events and possibly a demo at a school. No, definitely, don't have a kid tossing a toy in front of the dog's face. I mean, that's not great. But it's not to say that the temperament of the dog wouldn't be able to withstand a demo at a school or something like that. Also, so I can't speak on the officer promotion part. I have no idea. I'm not a cop. And so I guess the only thing that Beth was able to provide in that, and when we've spoken to her before, is just offsetting the cost because she's paid for the training of the dog already. And then we also do certify through a third party. So none of our certifications are in-house. So what that means is we don't procure, train, and then validate the dog. So we do not tell the handler that the dog can sniff odor. We go to Douglasville to an officer that is NNDDA certified, so it's a national certification throughout the entire country, standard, or we can do NAPWADA, whichever is preferred is fine, but we do go to a third party. So we are not validating our own dogs. So a third party will tell them if the dog is ready or not to be out on the street. So let's see, as far as, again, I don't know if you want to speak on the seized fund part. I'm not a police officer, so I'm not sure
I
how
mean,
that
as far
works.
as the seized funds, I think the chief, of course, and Mr. Bob, you and I talked about that. I think we're all pretty clear on the fact that a dog can bring in seizure funds from different seizures that involve drugs and things like that. I have seen in prior cities that I've worked at, I've seen, and it happened next door at the city of Powder Springs just recently. They actually went through this same scenario. They had an officer that was willing to come to work there. They wanted to utilize his dog. He signed a certain contract waiving these things, and that was done and approved by their attorney. That doesn't mean that that would be something that your attorney would be open to or anything like that, but it has been done, and it's been done in other places. I certainly respect the chief's position. We were asked to be here to answer some questions about the things that we've seen work in other places, and that is something that we've seen work there. The city of Emerson was another one that they had that same kind of arrangement with their handler. So it does happen. To the chief's point about the compensation, that is absolutely correct. That can be handled in a couple of different ways. To my mind, it would be up to the chief to determine what that compensation would be. Fair Labor Standards does say they have to be compensated. There is, I think we can agree, mass confusion about what the word compensation means. There's some cities that pay 30 minutes. There's some cities that knock an hour off of the officer's time while they're there. But to my mind, that would rest with the chief as to how he wanted to compensate his handler.
And then, let's see, the last thing I had was the pseudo. I definitely understand that as well. But what we have done, as far as getting the DEA license or not getting it if you're in a pinch and you needed training aids for the dog. So what we have done is kind of a test. So we've taken the pseudo odor, trained the dog entirely on the pseudo, and then gone and certified it at the third party. So that is a testament to the fact that the pseudo works, because the test at NNDDA is with real narcotics. So that was just kind of our test case. If we're going to use pseudo ever, or if a department is in the scenario now where they can't, don't want to go through the process of having the DEA license and everything that comes with that, and having to waive the narcotics and making sure that all of those boxes are checked, we did this test that, trained the dog entirely on the pseudo and then certified it on the real narcotics.
In the certain, there's a certain brand of pseudo odor called ScentLogix, and I believe in the most recent USPCA trials, which is the United States Police Canine Association, 7 of the top 10 dogs in their competition were trained with ScentLogix and imprinted on that.
And there's also GenScent, who now, it's an entirely scientific conversation that doesn't need to happen here, but there is a new technology as well that has odor tubes that are stored with real narcotics. So the odor tubes will hold the odor of the real and actual narcotic, and then those are used on training aids. So that is not actually pseudo odor, but it is not something that requires a DEA license.
And we just wanted to kind of give that information to you, because in the dog world, we hear there's a whole lot of different opinions, and at the end of the day, as long as we're all working towards what's positive for the dog, that's all that matters. We did the test case because I wasn't a believer in pseudo for a very long time, but taking a dog from beginning to end and then it going and certifying the first time that it sniffed, the actual narcotics from the certifying official, it performed flawlessly. So that is an option, but
It's
again,
preference.
that rests in this case solely with your chief and his discretion. So, I mean, I was a prior police chief. I completely understand his position. I'm kind of here on the other side of it now. And to be somewhat honest, this is a little bit of an uncomfortable position for me to be in. But at the end of the day, we were asked by the council to be here and kind of give a fair overview of any questions that were asked of us and just hit some points. So that's what we wanted to do.
Any questions? Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, not a question. Okay. Matt and Sam, thank you for being here tonight. It was a pleasure meeting you. And I understand your passion for what you're doing, okay? I firmly believe there's a place in law enforcement for drug dogs, rescue dogs, even patrol dogs. As a former chief of police, we got to do it the right way to protect not only our agency, but in this case, protect our city. So if we're going to do anything that falls under the guidelines of the chief of police, then we're going to have to defer to that chief. I have been out of being a chief for 6 years, so it's changed. And I'm not up to speed on everything that I may have been up to speed on 6 years ago. So my feeling is we will continue to look at this issue, but we'll let, in my mind, I would say that the chief is the one that makes the decision of when we move forward and how we move forward with the K-9 unit.
Again, in
that's
this,
fair,
in
yeah.
this case, we were here at the behest of the council. We're just laying out our unbiased opinion. Again, we don't have a proverbial dog in this fight, if you will. This is,
And if we're happy to speak to the chief, should he ever want to, so,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
thank you.
Consent agenda?
Okay, the item that was for the public hearing, that will be new business since it's zoning. And item number 1 for the Rosenwald, consent. Item number, sorry, that was 4. Item number 5, which is the budget amendment for the video systems, consent. Number 6, the resolution to add the membership to GERMA for the First Responders PTSD Fund, consent. Number 7, the surplus and disposal of the 2 vehicles, consent. The renovations of the building located at 186 Oak Street under the water tower, I have as consent. It's actually number 10, but it was number 9 in the order. The quote and information from Rent for the Harris Drive Improvement Project, I have as new business. Number 9, which was became number 10, the steeple removal and roofing project, I also have as new business. Number 11, the repairs to the well, consent. The council retreat, I have as consent, and that would be the dates, facilitator, location. Number 13, the gala, I have as new business. So whoever would make that motion, would need to state what the desire is in that motion. The K-9 unit, no action at this time. And that's all I have.
I have a question. Number 8, how did you come to the conclusion that there was consent for the renovation under 186 Oak Street?
By the end of the conversation, I didn't hear any dissent. If there is, then it will be new business.
New business?
Yeah, this is always at y'all's direction,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Any others?
Number 9, was that, what did you have that list? I'm sorry.
So the steeple?
Yeah.
Okay,
That was-
new business.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I have a statement that I need to read. Just for the matter of record, I, Mayor Frank Moran, administered the oaths to standby Judge Timothy McCreary on January 9, 2025. Indigent Defense Attorney Linda Caldwell on January 9, 2025. And Chief Judge Chadwick D. Plumley, January 14, 2025. Okay, February 4th is our regular meeting. Melissa Chosewood and Christie will be out of the office February 3rd through 5 to attend training. And I would also just like to mention that one of our business owners, Harry, that owns the Olive Tree Restaurant downtown here, his wife passed away and her funeral was yesterday.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Bob? No. Tiff? Melissa?
Yes, tomorrow, the 29th, at Greystone Power, the Mental Health Task Force is meeting between 2 and 4. It's, and I'm so ashamed that I don't know how to pronounce this day, Symposium? Symposium, I had to end there. All right, but really important, mental health, 2 to 4, Greystone. And then on Friday, a fun community event in our county, movie night, 7 p.m. at the Dallas Theater. It's a movie, they're showing a family movie, free admission, 7 p.m. It's called The Titans. The Titans was filmed here in the county, so I think that's pretty cool. And it's also Black History Month, so it aligns itself with that. And then on Sunday, the Paulding Education Foundation, which helps support our underserved population, they help them secure scholarships. So there's their gala, and that is on Saturday, on the 1st at Greystone Power?
Greystone Power.
Greystone Power, from 6:30 to 10:30. And the Paulding County Chamber of Commerce, Government Affairs, if there's issues that we have on the local level, we bring it to this joint kind of committee effort to get it to the people on the top so you can hear our needs. So that's in the Greystone, I'm so sorry, Paulding County Chamber of Commerce from 9 to 10:30. And that's all I got.
Derek? All right, may I have
I have a couple of things. The Camp Hornet, Kathy wanted me to let you all know that registration is going to open in February. Probably, she said, around February 20th. That was the first piece, and I'll go ahead and do this one, Jody. The Paulding Education Foundation, you all purchased the tickets. There are 3 left. They're with Jody now, and that is on Saturday. So if you want to attend, please let us know ASAP so that we can put them to use if you don't use them.
Jody, you got anything?
I do want to take a moment just to commend city staff, and particularly Jackie Pryor, for the work that they did during the audit. Everybody has to basically be in upheaval while we're pulling, files and invoices and everything else that goes along with what Mr. Whitaker looks for in the audit. They pulled together very well. I mean, the audit itself, there were no findings. I've already received email back from the state with regard to State Department of Audits saying that they've received it, that we're in good standing. And just want to thank Jackie, too, for the work that she does, along with Tracy. They get put through a lot during that period of time and still have to do their normal jobs. So, and again, the employees have been wonderful during this, too.
May I have a motion on item number 15?
I make a motion to join the work session.
I'll second.
All in favor? Good night.
Why is it when we get to this point, everybody looks dead? Hey, Derek?
I'm sorry, I said, sorry.
Whatever.